Well, hello, everybody. Hello, this is Pastor Sherry of the Healing Place Ministries of Alexandria, Louisiana. I know that it is a little late. It is a little past our regular time, but I had a class that I was in, so I needed to do the class before I came on. But anyway, we are here. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, Kathy. Good evening. Let's go ahead on and share. We're not going to be on long tonight, but I just wanted to share something with you as we are going forth tonight. We know that it is a lot of things going on. It's a lot of things going on. And we are overwhelmed with a whole lot of things. But I want to drop this in your minds, in your spirits tonight. So as you are coming in, you know what to do. Like, share, tag with your circle, your clique, or your crew. Somebody in your circle of influence who needs to hear, or who you believe needs to hear this tonight. We want to look at a very familiar text, and that text is the Good Samaritan. But I have been working on something. I've been working on something a little different with this text, and I think that it's a good thing for us to look at tonight. So again, welcome as you are coming in, to make sure that you are sharing, you are liking, you are tagging somebody in this tonight. So we are going to open up tonight with a word of prayer. Gracious God, we do thank you for the privilege of this day. It's been a good day. It's been a long day, but we are here and we are grateful for it. So open our hearts, our minds, our ears, that we may hear what you have to say. In Jesus' name, amen. So I want us to look at, again, a familiar text, and that is the story of the Good Samaritan. And so let us look at Luke. I want us to go back, and I just want to focus on one word tonight. And depending on what your translation says, the word may be pity, or the word may be compassion. But let us look at the text. And then I want to set it up, but then get to that word pity or compassion, depending on what translation you have, and how words have evolved, and how the hearers would have understood this word in the original Greek language. So let us go to Luke 10, and I'm not going to read all of it, because we know this story, right? We know this story. It starts in Luke 10:25. Luke 10:25, and it begins with the young lawyer, right? The young lawyer. And we do know, and we remember that lawyer is not the same as what we would think about what a lawyer is, someone who defends us in the courtroom, right? But a lawyer here in the text is a legal expert. It is a legal expert, but the law of Moses, in the legal expert in the law of Moses. So as you are coming in, go ahead on and let me know that you are here. Say good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are, just to let me know that you are here and I am not talking to myself. So again, if you just come, we're talking about the Good Samaritan, right? The Good Samaritan. But I want to focus on the word compassion and what it really means to be compassionate toward another. I want to suggest tonight that there is a difference when we talk about pity and compassion, right? So the lawyer asked Jesus, what is the greatest commandment, right? He's trying to test Jesus. What is the greatest commandment? And of course, we get to Jesus answers the question with a, first of all, he asked the lawyer, well, you tell me what is the greatest commandment, right? And then we get to the tools to love God and love each other. So we know that. Well, the legal expert was not satisfied with that answer. So Jesus gives a parable. So this whole thing, the parable of the Good Samaritan, is really that answer to the question that the lawyer asked Jesus, right? And so he goes on, he gives them a scenario about a man being wounded on the Jericho road. Robbers, that road was notorious for a lot of crime, right? Robbery and things of that nature, because there were people going and coming up to Jerusalem or coming down from Jerusalem, the holy city. So the question comes up of, well, the story goes that, and it's all in the text. Good evening, Chantel. Prince, so good to have you. Good evening, Deacon Elvira. So glad to have y'all. Would y'all do something for me and go ahead on and share with your circle, your clique, or your crew? Because I want us to look at something when we talk about that the Samaritan, right? And I'm not going to go into a whole lot about what the Samaritan, who he was and all this, but the Samaritan had compassion. And that's the word I want to use tonight, because we interchange pity and compassion. And even though some of your translations may have the word pity, we're going to focus on the word compassion. And I think the King James has the word compassion, but there's a difference between pity and compassion, right? So we understand that the priest passed by. Now listen, there were and we give the priest a bad name, right? We say, he was going to the temple. He should have been the one who would have at least stopped by and help the man. But what I understand and what some new insight that I got is that this priest was one of several priests who rotated in and out, and he probably had one time to serve in the temple. He had one time per year to serve, and for him to stop by to do to take care of this man, or to look, to do, he would have soiled himself, right? He would have dirtied himself by stopping by to help, and missed his opportunity to go to the temple and serve in the temple, and he may not have gotten that over. It would have been a whole nother year before he could have done that. Now, is that making sense? And then the rule said that he could not be contaminated, right? He could not be contaminated going into the temple. And so it is with the Levite. So whatever reasons they did not stop by, they did not have compassion. And I want you to hold that. And then we get the Samaritan, who does stop by. Why? In verse in verse 10, and I think that in 33, it says, but a Samaritan, while traveling, came near, and when he saw him, he was moved with compassion. Now, compassion moves us beyond feeling sorry. Let's catch that. Compassion moves us beyond just feeling sorry or having empathy for one, right? Compassion moves us to action, but it's not just about him going to, the innkeeper and different things of that nature, but it first had to tug at his heart before it moved to his brain. I need you to catch that. If we're going to have compassion, it must first hit the heart before it moves the brain. Somebody put that in the comment section. It must touch the heart before it moves to the brain. So compassion is an emotional response. It is an emotional response. It is a heart response first. This Samaritan, his heart responded to the pain of the wounded man. Now, you have heard, no doubt, that there are people, and maybe you are one of them, that you can, some people say that they could just feel the pain of another. They can feel the pain. When somebody else is hurting, they actually feel that pain. This Samaritan had an emotional response first. He saw it with his heart. See, the priest and the Levite saw it with their heads first and not their heart. Yes, Chantel, it must touch the heart before it touches the head. Because if it touches the head first, right, we'll think about all the reasons why we should not do. We have other places to go. We don't want to get involved. We don't have the resources. Let somebody else do it, right? But the Samaritan had compassion, and that it was an emotional response when he was confronted by the wounded man's pain. I need you to catch that. Yes, Kathy, it must start with the heart and not the brain. Now, when we talk about pity, may also give us this idea of an emotional response of the heart. But pity, sometimes we become so overwhelmed by the situation that pity sometimes paralyzes us. In other words, we see all that's going on, but it is so big for us and it does not move us to action. Let's say that again. Pity may also tug at the heart, but what pity does, it is just so overwhelming. The situation is so overwhelming that we cannot, it causes us to be stuck. It does not move us. Oh, I pity her. I feel for her. I feel for this wounded man, but it's just so much. And so we just stand there and we don't end up doing anything. But the compassion moves us to action, because why? We feel the pain of the other. Pity, for the Greeks and especially for Aristotle, is a form of fear of seeing another's pain and dreading that this same thing that has happened to the other can happen to me. Let's say that again. Pity. Remember, I told you it's overwhelming. The situation is overwhelming, and then it causes us to think that, oh, what has happened to this wounded person can happen to me. And so what do? I back. It's just so much for me to comprehend. I back away from it. Is this making sense? I know that it's different, but I need you to understand. If we're going to understand the biblical text, we've got to understand it in the way that the original writers and the original hearers, the original audience would have understood the situation. So the Samaritan not only pitied, but the Samaritan went a step up to compassion. I see it and I feel it. If y'all just coming in, welcome. And I need you to, it's a good time to go ahead on and share, like, tag somebody in this tonight. So when we want to show compassion, here are three things that must be involved. Here are three things that must be involved. Number one, there must be victims. Number two, it will cause you to be vulnerable. And number three, you will move voluntarily. Catch these three again. There must be a victim. It's going to cause you to be vulnerable because you're going to have to risk something. You must be willing to risk something. And then it is voluntary. Right? So Jesus in the Good Samaritan showed that we have to expand our compassion. We must expand our love beyond the boundaries of just our family members, right? So it's easy to have compassion and to respond to each other's pain that's in our circle. It's easy to respond to each other's pain that's in your clique, your circle, your crew. But this story is suggesting, and the Good Samaritan shows us, because the Good Samaritan is an outcast, and for the Good Samaritan to be the hero of this story, Jesus is clearly teaching us that we have to look beyond the boundaries that we have erected. It's good. Yeah, we can, anybody that's in our circle, our clique, our crew, we have no problem responding. We have no problem with feeling the pain of another. But can we feel the pain? Can we enter into the suffering with another who is not like us, who is not in our circle? Right? It has, we understand that a mother will respond to the pain of her child, right? So catch that picture, because that's the kind of picture that Jesus is showing us. Just as a mother responds to the pain of her child, we are called to respond to the pain of another who's not in our circle, who's not our baby, right? So compassion, this is what we're talking about tonight. Compassion has a drive, or it is a drive that allows humans to be touched by others' suffering and take action against the suffering, even at the risk of one's life. Remember, I told you there's got to be a victim. There's got to be somebody who's suffering. There's got to be somebody who is in pain. And for us to show compassion, we must be vulnerable and open to help at the risk of our own safety. Now, I know, in other words, you've got to be willing to take the risk that it's going to cost you something to respond to the pain of another. I know that's different. I know it's different from anything that we may have heard. But I want you to think about it. How we see many people hurting. We see the children, as we say, the starving children in Africa. We see it on TV. Oh, we pity them. But it doesn't cause us to move. It doesn't cause us to do anything. We see the children in our neighborhoods, right? But it seems that the murders and all of these things in our areas, and it's not just here in Central Louisiana. If you look at the news in any, it used to be in any major city, but it's any place now, right? It's overwhelming. We feel for it, but there's what can we do, right? But compassion says not only are there victims or people who need our help, but we feel in such a way that it moves us to action, and we open up ourselves. We become vulnerable to take care of the needs of another. The wounded man in this story received care from the Samaritan who had compassion. The lawyer, catch this now, even at the end of the story, the lawyer still could not see what Jesus was teaching. He had pity, but he did not have compassion. And then pity says that I'm here, and you're here, you're down, and I'm looking down at you. Compassion says, it could have been me. It could be me on the Jericho road. I feel that pain of that wounded person just as if it was me. It were me. Remember, right? Remember, this whole story is told because the lawyer wanted to know the greatest commandment. Jesus answers the question by associating compassion with love. What is the greatest commandment? To love God and love each other. Jesus associates love with compassion, and love is active. I need somebody to repeat that. Love is active. I need somebody to repeat that. Love is active. It is active. It is active. It is active. Remember, there must be a victim, somebody who's wounded. You to help another, it's going to cost you something, and it's going to be voluntary. Why? Nobody has to force, because you see it and you are moved. You are not forced, but you are moved. So Jesus says, seems to tie compassion with love, and love as action and not passive. Love is active and not passive. Love is active and not passive. So we see a human need, we respond physically, emotionally. It is not timid. It is not distant. It's not, it's over there. But you get up close and personal, right? You enter into the suffering with the other person. When was the last time you felt compassion? When was the last time you saw a person wounded? And I'm not necessarily just talking physically, emotionally. Somebody who is perhaps grieving. Somebody who is, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually wounded. And you were moved with compassion, that you were willing to enter into, that your heart you had an emotional response with your heart, that you could feel the pain as if it was happening to you, and you opened yourself up. You took a risk to walk with that person, to be with the person. That's the goal. That is the goal. It's an internal thing. It will spill out on the outside externally, but it's got to start on the inside. It's got to start on the inside. So when we get to the end of, when we get to the end of the text, and we know about how the Samaritan had to, he took the wounded man to the inn and told the innkeeper to do whatever he had to do. And he'll come back, and when he come back that way, if there was more, he was going to take care of it. But it's the end of the story for me. When Jesus says, which one of the three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell, to the wounded who fell into the hands of the robber? The young expert, the legal expert of the law says, the one who showed mercy. He wouldn't even call him the Samaritan, but the one who showed mercy. And Jesus said, go and do likewise. And that's how I'm going to end it tonight. Go and do likewise. There was a reason why the story was told. To answer the question about the greatest commandment. That when you see a wounded person, Don't start with the brain. Start with the heart. Don't start with the mind trying to ration it out, because the mind will give you all the reasons why it should not be done. Let somebody else do it. I'm not going to get my hands dirty. I don't know who this is. Or whatever excuses that we may come up with. But when it hits the heart first, you will respond as a mother responds to a baby that's in pain. And how is that? She will move mountains. She will push anybody out the way. She will bear no expenses to bind up the wounds or to take care of the wounds of that baby. And so I say to you tonight, as you go about your day, as you go about your week, as you go about your life, when you see the wounded, because one day you may be the wounded, and you will want somebody to enter in, to not pass you by, but to enter in, to become vulnerable and do it voluntarily, to bind up your wounds. I pray that I know it was short, but I wanted to make sure that I came on tonight. I wanted to make sure that I came on tonight because you may be faced with the decision that will require you to go out of your comfort zone to help another. I pray that this has been a blessing to you tonight. It's short, but I think that it's got a punch to it. I think that it's got a punch to it. Thank you for stopping in tonight. And I pray that as you go into your weekend, that you will find a way to engage in Sabbath, and that you will do the work that your soul must have in order to experience joy, in order to experience pleasure, in order to experience rest. God, we just thank you, and I pray a double blessing over everyone who decided to stop in here tonight. In your name, amen. Y'all be blessed, and may all be well.